Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with these nerds.
I'm Ted.
Ryan.
And today we want to discuss how do you create your character concept.
If you want to jump down to the description below, you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter. It's a great way to get weekly gaming tips as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So we recently did another video where we were doing a video response to Gareth and talking about character backstories. And, part of that discussion was, the pre-made story defining the pre-made backstory defining your character as opposed to the player that starts with no backstory and defines the character as you go. Mm-hmm. Which that got me to thinking, like, there's a lot of ways to come up with a concept for a character that you want to play in a game. And sometimes they are very story driven and you have a personality that you just want to play. Sometimes it's very mechanical in nature, and especially I feel heavily like in 3.5 where you had feat trees and things like that, where you want to build off of that. Sometimes it's a full character build that you're just like, all right, from level 1 to 20, I'm building this build. Whether it's one of the character builds we've done, like building a cook character, or the swashbuckle character, or the 2-weapon fighter character, right, or the archer character. Like, they're all different things that you could build towards.
Just a mechanical thing that you want to do, but then you work on as a secondary thing, you work on the personality.
Right. It's that wasn't your starting point, like in that case, but whatever it was, whether it's like I want to fight with 2 scimitars, and how do I build that character
and have a panther?
Well, that comes later when you start answering questions. Oh, you should probably have a panther that lives in a statue and
long white hair.
Yeah, possibly be from the Underdark.
Yeah, sounds amazing.
Well, it's Underdark actually. So there's copyright shit to deal with. So it's Underdark.
Here's an idea that I came up with when me and Ted were doing a video about stats. And one of the things I still have to take the numbers and crunch them and see what it looks like. But we were discussing, like, how close can you get to a character with straight 14s using the point buy system,
right,
and the right race,
right.
Which apparently is not the Mountain Dwarf in this case. But so I was like, well, what does that look like? And it really got me thinking. I want to play like a debutante type character, right? That is born to nobility, and it kind of like a Kardashian or what's her face?
Hilton?
Yeah, or Paris Hilton.
All right, so doing blowjobs in the back of a car. Got it.
Oh, wait, dark. I was thinking about people that are kind of famous for being famous. They didn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
So like I'm like, well, what does that what does that say? Like, this character that's kind of really like good at everything, and is kind of like a socialite. And it really, like, that just stemmed off of me going, how can I get straight 14s in my stats? And what does that... So, and then I started asking more questions, like, well, where does the character go from there? Like, they're not going to be great at anything, but they're kind of good at everything. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, well, that's probably a bard.
Yes.
And then I'm like, well, do you go College of Lore or College of Valor? I'm like, oh, you go College of Valor because you have to be not great at fighting, but good at it.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have all the different bard abilities, and then obviously that's a noble,
right,
for your background, and it's like either going to be a half elf or a human, to whatever maximizes the stat array.
Well, you can. Was it 5 13s and a 10? Is that what we found out? And if you went with the non-variant human, you got the +1s to all of them. Mm. That makes 5 14s and an 11.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
By 6th level, you can get all those 14s.
Yes.
Get all the 14s. Mm. So is that character going to be awesome in your game? No, you know what I mean.
It depends on how you role play. I mean, I think having those good stats across the board, having access to jack of all trades, mean you're getting those half proficiencies.
Well, I meant mechanically in the party role.
Yeah. I've seen people make characters that are suboptimal stats and still shine. I think as an intelligent player,
being able to play your class effectively,
you're going to take that character, whatever class you went, and you're a point or two under what you could possibly maximize I think you'd make that character stand out just as much as any other character.
Here's what I'm saying to playing a character class effectively. Like, Todd's awesome, does not play a bard very effectively, all right? Like,
No.
he never hands out inspiration, right?
Torg, worst bard ever.
Torg is the fucking worst bard. But, like, if he handed out his inspiration, like, even half the time that he could have, he'd be a much more effective and helpful bard. But he doesn't.
The last session, he actually gave it to Victus like 2 or 3 times. So
yeah,
he gave it to him and it came right back.
Prior to that, like in our 20-some sessions of play in that campaign, I don't need all my fingers on my hand to count the times that he's handed out inspiration. Like throughout the entirety of the campaign.
That's because you guys have not inspired Torg to
get
inspire you guys.
Yeah, maybe he should get all the role playing credit because he's like, you guys just don't inspire me.
Listen, Torg's backstory is his wife and kids were actually killed, right? So he's got trust issues.
Yeah. Did he really say this, or are you just making this?
No. It's in his backstory, and then whoever was defending the area where his wife and kids were, he murdered them because he blamed them. So he's got trust issues now, and he just doesn't trust you guys.
Wow, Torg just took an awful dark turn. You sure you're not making this shit up?
No, it's in my notes.
Oh.
I would have to say that I actually disagree. He does give it out. It's not as often as he should. Since I actually wound up getting a physical representation, a token
It's gotten
to put
better.
in front of him, he's gotten better about
Yeah.
it. It really is. He is. I don't want to say he's new to D&D, but this is not his typical thing.
Edition.
So he's getting used to it, and
I like the idea of he's not inspired by anyone. It's just strictly role play. Is really what it's about.
he used to give it to me all the time, just because he knew that combat wise my character sucks. So
Yeah.
And if you give it to Anthony, he's not using either.
No.
He likes to stack inspiration.
Yeah. He's just got.
I don't know what any of this has to do with character creation, but
We're talking about people playing suboptimal characters effectively.
yes.
Right?
so. What are some other ways to basically, because some of these people watching this video are new to the hobby. What are good ways to come up with character concepts?
Well, you can build, as you're talking about, building a character mechanically. Either you see a class feature, a feat that you want, or something about the mechanics of it that you're like, oh, this really inspires me to make a character. But on the other side, you can have a concept that's story-wise or something that's from a book or a movie, something that's inspired you. It's like, all right, I'd like to go down that road. How do I build a character that's going to get me there? Because I like that concept of story aspect, not a mechanical aspect.
I don't know. So, like, when I built when I made a reasonable explanation to how someone could be a paladin of a good god and a fiend-packed warlock, like, so mechanically it's interesting. So that did kind of arrive there at a mechanics first sort of thing. But then I got to thinking of like, well, what about a barrister that out-argues a devil? And then Dave and I had discussions about that song, the Devil Went Down to Georgia. Like, I mean, because at first we were talking about this idea of him being like a fiddle player and actually doing that. But now I was like, a barrister would be cool because it'd be a thing that doesn't really come up. So he's like a lawyer.
Right.
And so, yeah, he was like a half-elf paladin warlock who his background, I think he took... Oh, I did take Knight Retainer, but that's because I wanted the 3, like, he took the Pack of the Chain to have the imp, and the Retainers were also all imps, like, from a
Mini
flavor.
imps.
Yeah, from a flavor aspect or whatever. So that was again, a mechanical thing, but I think for, like, RP terms, a lot of times I like to take the idea of an actor or a few different personalities and put them together. Like Rask, the not so paladin-y paladin, he was basically Billy Bob Thornton from Bad Santa, with a bit of Tom Waits, who's like this, like obscure singer guy who's also had a reputation for being like a lounge lizard, like drunkard sort of guy, and that was like the culmination of those two personalities.
So did you arrive at the class first or the? I want to play these people as a character.
Well, no. I mean, I was thinking Paladin of the Beggar King. I was like, all right, well, to be a Paladin of the Beggar King, you got to be kind of a fucked up, shitty individual in a way. So I was like, what kind of person would be that? I know, the same kind of guy would be a derelict Santa Claus. Sounds about right.
So I feel like me and Ryan are kind of similar in the sense that we usually latch on to mechanical things in the game and then build the story around that. Because everything you described essentially is a mechanical aspect, and I go, you know, how do I make this a cool story?
Yeah.
Well, I would say that for the most part, I usually am as well. I'll pick, okay, for most characters that I'm going to build, all right, I'm going to play insert class or race. There's sometimes though where a story concept comes up first, and then I go with that.
Yeah, like even my Uthengar character, I was literally like, oh my god, 5th edition, I can wear armor, swing an axe, and be a wizard at first level. It filled me with such joy to know that I could do that. But from that, I started building up around that and going, oh, there's a whole clan of dwarves that actually do this, and they believe in building their magical might as well as martial might. And later that character took levels of fighter and became an Eldritch Knight. But with all that, I built the story to match the mechanics, and that's kind of what I do, because that's what kind of interests me with most of my characters. That's the fun part. And I know other people will come up with the character concept, and then they'll match the mechanics to it. I just have no ability to do that for whatever reason. Even in 3rd edition, when I made my half-orc druid, you know what? That might have been. I don't know what came first with that one, the chicken or the egg. I just knew I wanted to make Tarzan essentially, and I'm like, well, how do I make someone as wild and bestial as possible? Well, you make him a half orc, and then I'm like, well, how do I make him like Tarzan and so he can call animals? And I'm like, I know, druid, and I think I probably went with the druid summon nature ally aspect first and said, you know what, this actually screams Tarzan to me, and then kind of flip-flop things around. So I think personally for me, it's I find mechanically interesting things, and then I build out from there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the thing about Rasker is I think at some point I did realize that I wanted to make a character that reveres the Beggar King. So there was that I want to play a character that's reverent to this deity, and then from there I started making decisions for Paladin versus Cleric and things like that. So sometimes it's the story of the god is kind of interesting, and you want to kind of do something with that. So there could be things in the world that I want to make something that's a part of this thing.
Was it Pete from Forged Dragons and what's the other podcast?
That's Life.
That's Life. If he's doing either of them anymore. Yeah, but in 3rd edition, didn't he play a rogue that basically worshipped all gods and had kept the token of
holy symbol?
A holy symbol. All of them.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that he worshipped them all per se, but it was always just in case.
It kind of bespeaks to the slinky character from the Mummy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I got this holy symbol. All right, I got this holy symbol.
Yeah. So and sometimes that's another example of how you can arrive at a character concept, just a quirk, right? That one quirk is okay, I want to be a character that's isn't particularly a faithful person, but he's you know what, just in case, I want to keep my bases covered, my options open. There might be a lot of choices when it comes to an afterlife, and I want to make sure they're all available to me. And then from there you go, well, what kind of character would be that? And you're like, oh, well, that's definitely a rogue or a con man.
That's someone who's character.
Shady. Yeah. So the quirk is another way to arrive at how you're going to your character concept.
Yeah, I mean, you could also do things if you wanted to make something that replicates something from fiction, would be another way to okay, how do I build Tom Cruise's character from The Last Samurai? What does that look like? So soldier, fighter, essentially, but or any other sort of mixture of that, I want to make Titus Pullo from the TV show Rome, and how would that look? It's probably a fighter with a dash of some levels of rogue. So
modeling.
Yeah. Yes, and so you can draw the inspiration from wherever you want, either from the source material or from any extracurricular stuff.
Activities.
So to kind of condense things for you guys out there, so we have ways to come up with or creating your character concept would be cool mechanics, quirks, modeling,
And then starting from just a fictional standpoint, like say you invent this premise and then you build the character off of that. So,
like for instance, just as an example, I think what you mean is like say there isn't ancestral worship in the game, in the campaign world, but you want to introduce it as the player, and is that what you're talking about, that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, no, the idea of like you create the character, like the character premise, and so you're starting from a fiction standpoint first, and then you're like, okay, what choices do I make about this character based off of this brief character premise or synopsis? So it's like modeling, but instead of having an actual example to follow, you've just completely invented this character idea.
So, like, I want to play a samurai.
Essentially, sure, we could say that. Or I want to play a Spartan warrior. Same thing, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, perfect. So, you guys, why don't you help out the new gamers who might be trolling through the comments below and give your suggestions on the best way, or your best go-to for coming up with a character concept. While you're commenting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out on Facebook.
Or over on Instagram.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.